The cool thing is, Steve Jobs actually said that the killer app for the iPhone is making calls. Hello, and welcome to the Emerging Tech Show. My name is Sohan Maheshwar, and if you haven't seen this show before, what we do is we talk about tomorrow's technology today. So today we're going to be talking about cloud gaming and what the fuss is all about. Now, if you haven't seen this show before, essentially we talk about the future of tech and we have different segments. Think of it like Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, but with not as much humor or good information, but maybe the slightly better looking host. All right, so let's go straight into our first segment, which is what I like to call the peripheral. Now, this is a segment where we talk about the latest news. And this week, I'm actually starting with something kind of interesting, I think. And it's from this website called restofworld.org. Very, very interesting website. So do check it out. They feature tech from different parts of the world, other than the very mainstream sort of tech coverage that we see. And incidentally started by Google CEO Eric Schmidt's daughter, Sophie, if I'm not mistaken, her name is. So they have this very interesting story about how niobium, which is a rare earth metal, can actually define the future of tech in a way. So here's the story. Niobium is practically used in everything, from turbines to jet engines to airplane bodies, high pressure pipelines, and so on. Now, why niobium is a big deal is because it's actually put in steel to make it very, very strong and resistant. So just a tiny amount of niobium makes a big difference in the structural integrity of steel. Now, the good thing for Brazil is that 98% of the world's niobium is actually found there. And this was huge for the country. And in fact, their prime minister, or is it president? I think, I forget. But Jair Bolsonaro, he basically has played up niobium a lot. He's spoken about it. He's called it like this huge big deal for Brazil. And he's even touted and showed off this niobium necklace that he proudly wore. In fact, which has sort of become a meme there. Now, why am I actually covering this in a future of tech type show? Well, strangely enough, or coincidentally enough, China they have acquired huge stakes in Brazil's niobium mines. And this is actually very, very interesting because China is using this niobium in constructing 5G networks, smart cities, and also things like building bridges and buildings. So at the heart of it, a good old geopolitical battle can actually decide on how we get to use our future tech like 5G. Moving on to sponsored content. Yes, I do work for AWS, and this week kickstarted AWS's annual tech conference, reInvent. This year, of course, it's virtual and it's completely free. It started on the 1st of December. I think it was the 30th, but the keynote was on the 1st of December and it's going on for the next 3 weeks. So if you haven't signed in already, go and do so. It's completely free. A lot of great talks, especially the ones that I'm doing. They're the best of them all for sure. Also cool launches from reInvent this year. One is that there are new EC2 instances for Mac. Now, if you don't know what that means, let me explain it to you. How people sometimes use cloud computing is that instead of having your own servers to maintain and your own hardware to buy to run your web application, you use the cloud. So essentially Amazon has, data servers and data centers, and you're essentially using those computers. You're using someone else's computers. So you can get things like scale and reliability and so on. Up until now, Amazon and AWS did not have support for Mac OSs. So if you were building iOS applications or Mac applications, you had to physically make your own data centers by plugging in tons of Mac minis and, going through all of that. So this is kind of a big deal. So I think, it's actually pretty cool. There are also a couple of very, very interesting launches that I want to talk about. Hey, sponsored content. So one is DevOps Guru. Now, there exists this AWS service called Code Guru, and this is, again, we're talking about the future of tech, where typically up until now, you had people actually look at how your code was being used. You'd have like a team lead who'd look at your code and say, hey, this is crappy code, dude, or, would look at, some infinite loop that you had created and, actually point that out. But now with services like Code Guru, AWS service, you can actually get all of those reviews done automatically by something that is AI ML led. So it actually looks at your code, it profiles it and says, these are the lines of code that are using a lot of resources, etc. Similar to that, there is a service that was just announced called DevOps Guru, which is going to look at your entire dev operations, CI/CD and pipelines and all of that, and actually tell you about the improvements you can make. So I'm very excited about how that could go. Also, QuickSight Q. A few of y'all might use QuickSight. It is a tool to analyze a lot of data and get business insights. But the thing is, most people using a service like QuickSight are probably marketers, business intelligence, data analysts, not necessarily the people who do a lot of code. Well, with QuickSight Q, you can actually type in natural language queries to answers you want. So you can say something like, give me the sales reports for the last 2 quarters in this format, and you'll actually get it. Again, very, very excited about that future. As some of you all might know, I've worked a lot in the conversational tech space. So I'm super excited about how that goes. And also, I lastly want to point out that 2 of the launches that we made, which were Trainium, which is an ML training chip, and Monitron, clearly inspired by superhero names. They don't have anything to do with the upcoming Marvel films, just as a quick FYI. And for our last piece of news, this is hot off the press actually, but Salesforce just bought Slack for $27.7 billion. Ain't that amazing? So a lot of companies are really trying to be, the one-stop shop for everything workplace related. And when it comes to things that are workplace related, you have the entire value chain. Salesforce has they have a stronghold in the Salesforce value chain, I guess. Yeah. But they bought Slack. So this is actually huge. Slack, for a long time has been one of the Silicon Valley darlings, widely adopted by companies all over the world. So interesting to see how this really goes. I think this actually, I've always had this opinion that the movie WALL-E is a documentary made by a time traveler. And in the future that we will actually have just the one company that runs the entire earth. And I think we're slowly moving towards that future. So what do you think? Hit me up in the comments. I'll take a quick break to take a look at the comments and see who's here. Okay, moving on to our next segment. Well, this segment is actually dedicated to one of our viewers, one of our many viewers, might I say. But last week, essentially, Prashant5150, who's watching right now, said that someone actually managed to run Doom on a pregnancy test kit. Yeah, so these pregnancy test kits, the fairly advanced ones, come with like small LCD screens. And this Twitter user, twitter.com/FOONE or FO1, I guess, actually managed to port a video of Doom onto that and put the video out on Twitter. So do check it out. I usually feature, one of these cool things from the internet as part of one of our segments of the show. Talk about first-person shooters, am I right? Who writes this rubbish shit? I think I need new writers. Sorry. I'm going to fire some writers on that joke. So speaking of gaming, moving on to our main segment, and that is actually about cloud gaming. Now, this is a very interesting space. And believe it or not, it all started with a could it run crisis joke. I'm not even making this up. So in 2005, there was this company called, or there still is this company called Crytek. Now, Crytek makes cutting edge game engines and cutting edge games. And they made this game called Crysis. It's now led to a lot of memes about can it run Crysis, where you show a toaster and say, hey, can this run Crysis? But back in 2005, they were pushing the boundaries of what a PC could actually, with the graphics it could run. And they thought, hey, why don't we actually run this in the cloud and stream that game to people who could play that via the internet? Of course, that was very much just an idea phase. They tried a beta, it didn't really work out. But that is essentially what cloud gaming is. How it works, and I'm sure all of you all know this, but I got to say it anyway. Typically with games on your PC or on your console, you buy a piece of physical media, a CD, DVD, Blu-ray, thumb drive, punch card, whatever, 8-bit cartridge, and you install it locally on your system and you play the game. Now that's how it's worked for many, many years. I'm talking like 30, 40 years. But now, thanks to, the proliferation of the internet and how stable it is, and the fact that everyone, almost at least everyone watching, has an internet connection, cloud gaming actually is possible. So there are many I'd say, arguments or advantages of cloud gaming. One is the fact that you don't have to invest in buying like fancy computer hardware all the time. You don't have to buy the PS5 or the Xbox 5 and the next versions when they release, but you can actually play the latest games with the latest graphics with just a good internet connection. How it works is, think of it as Netflix, but you control every instant of the game. And a lot of people think that, hey, is this really a big deal? I've heard this before. But the fact that all the top companies in the world are sort of investing a lot of dollars into this actually tells you that it could be a big deal. So Google has something called Stadia that you see here, which looks like half your Wi-Fi logo. Nvidia has GeForce Now. Amazon has Luna, Amazon Cloud, Luna, Space, never mind. Xbox has their thing called xCloud, and heck, even Facebook has Facebook Gaming. And this isn't even mentioning things like EA Sports and Walmart and Verizon, who are trying their own versions of cloud gaming. The thinking behind all of these companies is that, hey, let's face it, especially post-pandemic, screens have won. Before pandemic, it was like, hey, I don't need screen time. I need to reduce screen time. But right now, literally, we are using a screen for everything. Their thinking basically is that people use screens for everything. Why not use it for gaming as well? I could get games right to your laptop or right to your phone, wherever you are. So potentially, this could be a really, really huge market. A lot of people, and here's the interesting bit, a lot of people are actually comparing all of these big platforms vying for the cloud gaming space as Netflix versus Prime versus Disney or Disney Plus. There are two ways of thinking of this. One is, yes, it could be that. But the other way of thinking of it is they're very different. The thing is, you can't really compare a Netflix versus, or rather watching, say, a movie on Netflix or a TV show on Netflix versus playing a game. Because with a movie, you're done in 2 hours. With a TV show, maybe in about 10 hours. But a game has a lot of replay value. You need at least, I'd say, 10 to 12 hours to finish a game on like an easy mode. But a lot of people like to repeatedly play games, do the side quests. If it's like multiplayer, you're playing it for thousands of hours or maybe 6,000 hours of FIFA like I did in my youth, which led to the lack of social life. So it's not a very straightforward comparison. How companies are seeing this is that, hey, right now there are probably about 140 million active current gen consoles. There are about 700 to 800 million PCs and 4 billion smartphones in the world. How about we get all of those people actually gaming? Again, very, very difficult, because when you're looking at something like, say, a Netflix or a Prime or a Disney Plus, you're looking at the breadth of content that they have. You want more shows, you want more movies, etc. Which is not quite the same with, like, say, a cloud gaming service. You probably just need the 5 marquee titles. Hell, you can ask Apple TV Plus, but they'll tell you it's very hard to build a business with like 3 TV shows on it. So not everyone really believes this model will work too. There's the CEO of Take-Two Interactive, this guy called Strauss Zelnick. And Take-Two makes games like GTA and Red Dead Redemption, NBA 2K, WWE 2K, and so on. So, the dude knows his stuff. So he's essentially saying this assumption works, or there's an assumption rather, that the people who are super interested in video games were unwilling to buy a console so far. So that 20x jump that you'll get makes this assumption, which probably isn't true. Well, I like strong gonzo journalism. So I thought, hey, let me actually test this for myself. Let me actually just go check it out. So I got a Stadia subscription, free trial, of course. Hey, gonzo journalism costs, but free trial. And I tried out a couple of games and the experience was fairly good. I played Bomberman, which a few of y'all might remember as a good old Nintendo game. There is a version where you can right now play Battle Royale style. So you're playing with 99 other people. I was, of course, the first to die like in literally every game I played. Again, just FYI, this is purely for research and not for me to slack off during work times, because I don't do that. I also played this game called Monster Jam, which was free to play. Just the tutorial was longer than all the 3 Lord of the Rings movies combined, so I gave up. But again, the graphics were fine and, the music was fairly pedestrian. But I sort of got the feeling that I was actually playing something without too much lag, etc. It's actually very, very interesting, the sort of technologies and the techniques that companies are using to get rid of latency. So one, like I mentioned earlier, for cloud gaming to work, you really need high bandwidth and stable internet. That's the reason it hasn't worked so far, but I think now we're at roughly the stage where something like this could theoretically work. The two techniques that companies are trying for this is one, GPU resource sharing. A GPU is a graphical processing unit. Now, to run games or to run any sort of graphical operations, you need one of this. And if you're doing cloud gaming, you have these in the cloud. What people used to do earlier is like every player would have their own GPU in the cloud reserved for them. So if they were playing something like Bejeweled or Candy Crush, they'd still have a GPU. Or if they were running like Destiny 3 on high res, they'd still have their own GPU. So this, of course, wasn't the most effective in terms of resource sharing. But now there is a lot of cloud optimization that's happening where in the cloud, GPUs are being shared by people who are playing like different games, and what their latencies are, how far they are from systems, and so on. So that actually can make things a little more smoother if you're actually doing cloud gaming. The second one, and this is super interesting, and this is why I love technology and emerging tech, is actually using AI and ML and very, very advanced algorithms to do something called predictive input. So people are trying this thing where they are going to look at patterns of how you play a certain game, try to learn from that, and try to figure out what you will do in the future. So assuming you play first-person shooters a lot, you're going in front, it sort of figures patterns that you're playing by, and it'll figure that you'll go to place X before you actually go to place X, thereby giving you this very, very cool concept of a negative latency, where the game has figured out what you're going to do before you've actually done it to be able to serve you the rest of the game. I think that's just super cool and maybe slightly scary as well, but time will tell if this works or not. Let's face it, it's very, very hard to say if this will work or not. I think there are a few products where you can be like, hell yes, this is the future, or dude, like, are you seriously, this is rubbish. But with cloud gaming, I think it's a tipping point. It could go either way. There are a few things that will really determine where this will go. One is, I think every new app out there needs a killer app. And that is the industry term as well. It's a killer app. So everything from the Apple II computer, launched, I think, in the early 80s, needed a killer app for people to go and buy the Apple II computer. And that killer app was actually VisiCalc, which was like a precursor to Microsoft Excel. Even with the Xbox, like about 10 odd years ago, it needed the awesomeness of Halo for people to actually go buy the Xbox. People saw the reviews and the images and the videos of Halo and said, wow, this looks amazing. I need to buy the Xbox. There's been a lot of debate about what the killer app for the iPhone is, and maybe you can tell me in the chat. A lot of people have said it's Angry Birds, a lot of people have said it's early Snapchat. The cool thing is, Steve Jobs actually said that the killer app for the iPhone is making calls. Because he really, for all his visionary and kudos to him on all of that, but he really didn't see us using our phones the way we are doing today, which is, putting dog photos on Snapchat or whatever. But generally, he actually didn't see any of this. He actually thought making calls would be the killer app. So I think cloud gaming really needs that killer app at this point of time, which really differentiates it, gets people to try it, and really sees that opportunity. The second is the pricing. All of the companies that I showed you earlier all have different versions of pricing. And if you ask me, all of them are pretty bad. With Stadia, it was a free trial, but you pay like a $10 monthly thing, and you pay a lot for extra games as well. With things like PlayStation and Xbox, it's an add-on to your already existing subscription service. With Facebook gaming, it's completely free, but you just get like very arcade-style games that you maybe play for like 20 minutes. There are a lot of reservations of paying like a fee of like say $10 and then again paying per game, which simply doesn't work. So I think figuring out the pricing really helps. Honestly, though, it's not like people haven't tried this before. In fact, there was this company called OnLive, which was a company from 2005. And they tried this back then, like a legitimate business. Stunning idea at the time, didn't work. They got bought over by PlayStation, who are using some of their tech right now. So I think companies have tried this before, but for any tech to work, you also need that perfect storm of everything coming together. And one of those key elements is always the timing. You can't be too late or too early. In terms of timing, I think cloud gaming now is the time. Hence the hence these massive corporations are trying to get in here. So I think time will really tell. Also, personally, I think it's very interesting how games like PUBG and Fortnite have changed if whether cloud gaming will work or not, because you're really bringing that same experience of going into a browser or through a phone, playing an immersive game and taking right over. So very, very excited to see how this goes. Anyway, that's it for the show. So expect to, I don't know, play Bomberman on a cloud-connected pregnancy test device in the future sometime soon. Again, who writes these jokes? Sorry, it's just the worst writing ever. Let me know in the comments what you thought, and if you like the show, please tell a friend. It takes me a while to script and write the show, so I'd love for you all to, maybe tell other people. Let's take a look at the comments. Anyway, do let me know what your thoughts are on cloud gaming. Again, this is the Emerging Tech Show. If you're watching for the first time, I do the stream at 5 p.m. European, 9:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time every Thursday. I'm hoping to do one every Thursday. So again, do tell people. Until next week, though, where I'm back with more Emerging Tech. Thank you for watching. See you soon. Stay safe. Bye.